A viewer asked me, almost like a personal request, to read Nassim Taleb's paper, Bitcoin is Worth Zero, and share my thoughts on it. So I gave it a read. I opened it up and read it, and it was worth reading. I could see the concerns he was dealing with, and why he reached that conclusion. Now, with all due respect to the author of The Black Swan and the brilliant mind behind Anti-Fragile books that deeply moved me, I'm going to offer a counterpoint, but it might not be the kind of counterpoint you're expecting. I'm not going to dissect every argument point by point. Rather, I want to summarize his main arguments and explain the reasoning behind them in a simple, approachable way. One thing I can tell you for sure, there are some people who'll be thrilled by his claims. That Bitcoin will eventually fall to zero. Those most pleased by that idea aren't the directors at the Bank of Korea. They probably wouldn't even engage with Taleb's line of reasoning, because Nassim Taleb, in his own way, has previously described Bitcoin as a brilliant and intriguing invention. So he's not someone who's clueless about technology either. He's definitely looked into it. That's quite different from those bank directors, meaning he's not skewed toward a humanities perspective. Taleb, judging by his paper, is clearly not biased against science. He's someone worth engaging with, at least in my view. So who's most pleased by this? Surprisingly, the group reacting with the most enthusiasm isn't the Bitcoin skeptics. It's the Ethereum advocates. Yes, the Ethereum supporters. If you carefully look at Taleb's reasoning, it's not pointing to Bitcoin, it inevitably leads to Ethereum. His logic unfolds naturally that way, and it's quite fascinating. So the issues he saw as flaws in Bitcoin, there's really nothing new about them. You've all heard them before. And Bitcoiners like me have deductively thought through them long ago, reaching our own conclusions. And it's tied to the point I often emphasize, Bitcoin's leap from $0 to $1. But the way he develops his argument is genuinely interesting. He argues that the Bitcoin system itself requires an enormous amount of upkeep. Has there ever been a ledger that costs this much to maintain? A ledger that takes so much to sustain, lacks monetary traits, and with prices swinging wildly, it's not like gold and silver, with alternative industrial uses, nor is it like stocks that pay dividends, an asset that fits into no established category, yet it burns through resources? When the illusion breaks someday, those costs will stop. Miners will stop mining. Then the network won't be sustained. And if the system fails to function, its value will inevitably collapse. And as the price drops, the system becomes even less sustainable. The price keeps falling. So the gears that took it from 0 to 1, those gears start spinning backward, back to 1, and eventually all the way down to 0. Being a writer with bold imagination, Taleb reached a bold conclusion himself. And I like that. That's how you should think. Reasoning needs to be like this. Not some half-hearted approach saying Bitcoin will settle at $1,000 or $10,000. Those are just frauds talking. As I've often told you, Bitcoin either skyrockets endlessly, like I believe it will. That's one position. Or it'll drop to 0. That's what's logically sound. Anything in between is just compromising with reality. It's guesswork, gut feeling at best. But it's not logical. The logical approach is to go all in on 0, like Nassim Taleb, or go all in on limitless upside, like me, that the price could rise beyond control. That's the kind of question bureaucrats, those of us who understand Bitcoin, myself included, should seriously consider for the sake of humanity. This is the core issue we need to reflect on. That's the argument we should be making. Everything else is a distraction. So why are Ethereum advocates so pleased with this? Here's how they're thinking. Look, our system, for maintenance, for system upkeep, doesn't cost much anymore. We've switched to proof of stake. We're not burning money anymore. We don't even use electricity like before. So to maintain this ledger, we spend nothing. And we're not like Bitcoin. We're not aiming to be money. We're aiming for a platform built for real functional use. That's why DeFi runs on our platform. NFTs run on it too. These valuable things operate to help reinforce the trust in the system. So we're not what Taleb described as utterly useless. Not gold, not stocks, not cash, unlike Bitcoin. That's their argument. So now that Ethereum has transitioned to proof of stake, and a paper like Taleb's comes out at this exact moment, Ethereum advocates are saying Bitcoin's energy-consuming system, not only is it wasteful and dirty, it's a burden on the planet, but it also contains the very flaw that will spiral it back to 0. That's its fatal vulnerability. Like our system, if you want a platform to last, You shouldn't need to spend on upkeep. That's the conclusion they draw. On top of that, Ethereum now supports staking. So it takes on traits of a stock too. It even pays interest now. So Ethereum's like Windows, or the World Wide Web, a platform. That also pays interest and doesn't require high maintenance costs. So everything Taleb criticized in his paper. Ethereum neatly avoids all of it. That's why, after reading Taleb's paper, the Ethereum camp is cheering and using it as ammunition against Bitcoin. Of course, Taleb didn't specifically mention Ethereum. He just lumped all blockchains together at the end, saying that even after 11 years, they haven't proven particularly useful. This illusion is, in fact, worthless. That's his firm, conclusive statement. Still, the reasoning he used, those logical tools, the Ethereum camp finds perfect for attacking Bitcoin. They're too good not to use. So it'll spread far and wide. That's why I'll be writing a response, a proper counter-argument. But as I'm sure you've noticed, I'm smiling, right? Because this is really fascinating. Rest assured he hasn't struck any nerve that truly troubles us Bitcoiners. No need to worry. Between Nassim Taleb and me, if you look at the reasoning, it's as thin as a sheet of rice paper, honestly. That's how subtle this logic is. If you just follow that logic to the end, Bitcoin could hit zero, that's one path. Or it could rise infinitely. Needing control, that's another. It's that close a razor-thin difference. It gives me chills, honestly. Reading Taleb's paper, I thought, wow, how did he think so much like me? That thought just kept coming. Everyone stay strong. Better days are ahead. Let's go.